Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 151. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. It is officially summer, feeling like it in Pittsburgh. It's been in the 90s over the weekend. I think it's going to continue throughout the week. Dave, how you doing? How are things out in Vegas?
Yeah, it's obviously hot out here. Happy Monday to you and the listeners. We bypassed, the first day of summer, longest day, I think, technically of the year, right? As far as the sun goes and all like that. NBA is done now as of Sunday night. Hockey's over with. Baseball, for all practical purposes, is over with for the Pirates. It has been. So I guess that means football's next here. Well, we got about 11 or is it 11 or 12? I even put this up there on Twitter yesterday. How many more Sundays until the first
11.
Regular season game for the Steelers? So not quite into July just yet, but I think we're closing in on the 30-day mark from being out from the start of training camp. So wasn't an eventful, newsy weekend, so to speak, but we've cobbled together a few things to kind of talk about.
Yeah, players report 1 month from today, Dave. They'll be at Latrobe for the training camp conditioning test July 23rd, first practice July 24th. Hopefully, the running joke I know will be, and I'll be the last to make it, I'm sure, the quarterback's not pushing sleds this year. Hopefully that part has been taken out of the conditioning test. That's where Russell Wilson got injured last year. So 1 month from today, football will really feel back, but it'll be a long month to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what do we got on the agenda today?
Not a whole lot. No live stream tonight. I'm not exactly hyping up this episode, but we got some things to discuss here and some unfortunate, sad news. It's not, a real true Pittsburgh Steelers story. Had this happened during the season, maybe there'd be a little more relevancy to it from our site standpoint, Steelers fan standpoint, but worth noting and sad all the same. Over the weekend, it was announced that Fred Smith, the father of Arthur Smith, had died at the age of 80. And while most people don't know exactly who Arthur Smith's father is, the name will sound familiar to those in Memphis and those who work for FedEx, because Fred Smith is the founder of FedEx. He was CEO until 2022, and then he stepped down. And so very, very wealthy man, and most people did not realize that was Arthur Smith's father. And Arthur Smith has not talked about his dad a whole lot, downplayed the fortunate situation he was born into and all that, but did have a nice comment back in 2021 about how much his dad meant to him and the great conversations they had about life and business and everything else in between. So that news, sad. And again, had this been in season, there may be some question about Arthur Smith taking some time away to attend funeral and things like that. But here in the off season, it's not going to tangibly affect Pittsburgh too much, but our thoughts go out to the Smith family.
Yeah, I didn't. I obviously knew the connection and all like that, and have known for quite a while who Fred Smith was. I did not. Was he? I didn't even look. Had he been battling something, or was this kind of sudden?
I'm not aware of the cause of death. I hadn't heard any illness. I didn't see anything reported, but I did not investigate that too much.
The other little tidbit that I think that I saw on the internet, and we all know everything on the internet's true. He supposedly had a cameo in Castaway. Did you know that?
I did not. First I'm hearing about that.
I have not gone down that rabbit hole. Well, obviously that was a FedEx plane that that supposedly that's one of those movies. Have you ever watched that all the way through or no?
I've never seen Castaway. I know the movie with Tom Hanks.
You really have? That's another one you've never
seen.
Oh
never,
my goodness.
Terrible movies.
That's one of those movies too, for some reason, when you're clicking around on the TV and all like that, they seem to show it all the time now, that you find yourself just clicking on to see at what point. It's not one of those movies where you stay on it a long time because there's not a lot of dialogue on there except him talking to Wilson, the volleyball, in there. But I don't know. It's always been one of those movies that when you click on, I mean, when you see it in the guide there, that you click on it and you have to find out what point of the movie it is for some reason and all. But anyway, yeah, sad news for the Smith family there. And yeah, I would imagine if we were in season, it'd be one of those things where, Arthur Smith be asked to talk about his dad if it was close to a presser. But we're not going to hear from Arthur Smith until at least another month, probably.
Right. So again, a lot of people didn't know that connection, and I remember writing about it when Smith was first hired in my big book of Arthur Smith, a deep dive into the background, the person, the coach of Arthur Smith, and he's somebody that certainly does not need to be working, and somebody that still grinded as a coach from a grad assistant to climbing the ladder, quality control coach at the NFL, and never really leaned on his dad's ties to get him ahead or give him any sort of advantage. I mean, I'm sure it did in some ways, and he had an internship or a job with Washington where his dad was sponsoring. So, I mean, that probably helped in some form or fashion. But all those who talked about Arthur Smith, knew of Arthur Smith. Some of them didn't even realize his dad was the founder of FedEx for a long, long time, or heard it through the grapevine, not through Arthur Smith directly. Now, just to clarify a couple quick points. No, Arthur Smith is not going to become the CEO of FedEx. He's not leaving for FedEx. His dad stepped down in 2022. He had a board role. He was no longer the CEO running the day-to-day operations. Arthur Smith is not in the succession plan to run FedEx, and those asking about inheritance, all that kind of stuff, I have no idea. Not going to speculate on that. But Arthur Smith will still be the Steelers OC in 2025.
Yeah, we hope he delivers.
Hey yo, he does. He does need to deliver for sure. If he over delivers, then will he be the OC in 2026? I know we talked about that a little bit, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, but I still think this is a guy that will get another head coaching job at some point. Where and when and all those kinds of particulars, I don't know. But if he succeeds and the offense succeeds, he will, I think, continue to get head coaching interest.
And part of that succeeding, hopefully starting faster. And I kind of noticed that's something that we've went down a couple of rabbit holes here in the last couple of shows about fast starts and kind of piling on that, how the defense hasn't started fast, and then lo and behold, Warren Sharp comes up with some numbers about the Steelers and what was it, a point differential, I think, for was it first quarter games and all like that. But the timing of that was quite interesting that Sharp had. And I know Mike Tomlin has downplayed fast starts and all like that. I wish he would do that. But it was just interesting to see that this team starting this year could certainly use faster starts, not only out of the offense but the defense as well too. The point differential just incredibly high, especially last season. And although their second quarters, I think, have been pretty decent and made up some ground there, it'd be nice not to have to do that.
And we had the stat about the lack of week one fast starts, not having an opening drive touchdown since 2008. Is there a correlation? Is there a common theme between why Pittsburgh has been habitually slow starting? Because it's not just an Arthur Smith thing. It's been to a couple coordinators. Is it just because the offense in general has been underwhelming and been below average most seasons the last several? Or is there a common theme of why this team is starting so slowly?
Oh boy, we could go down that rabbit hole for a while. I mean, what is their third down conversion rate early?
Or what is their first down success rate?
Yeah.
Because they've been one of the worst teams on first down year after year. And when you're bad on first down, you naturally lend itself to being in third and long.
Right. And another thing that I was thinking about, what is the correlation between rankings in first quarter point differentials to teams that make the playoffs or teams that win a playoff game,
Well, we'll pull up that Warren Sharp tweet and see who had the best differential and see what those teams did. I mean, you would imagine the teams that are successful in more categories than not. So I imagine you're going to see some positive correlation. The better the differential, the more likely that team wins, the more likely they have playoff success. But I don't know the exact data on that.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it in here somewhere.
And there's a couple days ago that he tweeted that out.
Was it? Yeah.
I believe so. Maybe Friday.
First quarter points allowed. The Steelers were last, 112. And I don't know if we got the full list here of the differential or not. Is it in there? He's got multiple tweets in here. It's hard.
I thought he
to
did
look
have one
at.
tweet about the differential.
He did?
I thought he did. I glanced at the tweet. I think whenever you had shared it.
I'm not finding it right now, but it would be something to kind of look at. I think. I mean, it's probably a Captain Obvious thing that teams that do have the best first quarter differential, especially a positive, not only probably make the playoffs, but most of them probably do win a playoff game. But I would like to see it in black and white.
I'm not seeing the differential tweet immediately, but just from the first quarter points allowed, Pittsburgh, most of the NFL, 112. Next is Dallas, Carolina, Tennessee, the Rams, the teams who allowed the fewest, the Packers, the Chargers, the Ravens, the Vikings, the 49ers, and the Bengals. Bengals surprised me on that list, but Packers, Chargers, Ravens, Vikings, teams that, are trending in the right direction.
Yeah, but I mean that you see where I'm coming from. I'm talking about differential of
Sure.
of offense and defense. But I mean, obviously, if you're giving up 100, most of these teams that are giving up these kind of points allowed probably aren't. I don't know. The Eagles allowed 76 points, but I mean, what did they score in offensive first quarter points though? So
Right.
what is the differential? I don't know. Maybe that's something we'll go down the rabbit hole or have somebody write about here in the next 4 weeks.
Pittsburgh last in the NFL in 2024 in first down yardage per play. Now, this is in all situations, not just first drive for the entire season, averaging 4.6 yards per play. Again, dead last in the NFL behind the Bears, the Patriots, the Browns, and the Jets. Tops in the NFL, Baltimore, averaging 7 yards per first down play. And so almost 2.5 yard difference between Baltimore and Pittsburgh on first down success, and that number has to change in 2025 under Arthur Smith.
Yeah, just cutting to the chase. They need to be better on both sides of football in first quarters.
Yeah, no question. All right, Dave, we know training camp is nearing because you are doing your 90 in 30 series. The first couple editions have already gone up, and so we can probably spend some time and roll through those names and talk about the outlooks for the summer and for the season. So let's start off with the first player in your 2025 90 in 30 series. Offensive tackle Calvin Anderson re-signing on a 2-year deal. Veteran player added partway through last season. Got a cup of coffee in a couple games last year. Also missed a month with, I think it was a groin injury that put him on IR. But right now, he is slated to be this team's number 3 tackle.
Yeah, you talk about a guy in Calvin Anderson that joined the team slightly after the start of last season there and then remained on the 53-man roster. And when not battling the groin injury and IR was active for, I think, 10 regular season games. He only saw action, I think, in 4 of those, logged, 11 offensive snaps in total and 1 additional one on special teams. So not a lot of tape in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform to look at, and kind of even though the money wasn't huge, ended up. I thought this is kind of a guy that you signed to a veteran benefit contract, but the Steelers thought a little bit more of him. 2-year, $4 million contract this offseason, and even gave him an $830,000 signing bonus, which obviously is the guaranteed part of the deal there. So as things sit here right now, with roughly a month to go until the start of training camp, you have to look at Calvin Anderson and think that this is a guy that's at least until we get further, notice or visible, proof that this is a guy that they at least are initially set on being the swing tackle per se. Now, giving him an $830,000 signing bonus does not lock him into making the 53-man roster, but you do have to like his chances nonetheless. And that's quite a player to kind of pin your hopes on, or your initial hopes on, of being a swing tackle. He has obviously logged snaps in the NFL previously, but has been kind of viewed as a lower end, I guess, journeyman, if you will. So once again, as things stand right now, I think you'd have to bet that he is the top swing tackle choice behind Broderick Jones and Troy Fautano. And if indeed that ends up being the case, he's more than likely going to be one snap away from seeing considerable time at either or position there. And I guess the good aspect is he can and has played both left and right tackle spot. And we talked about him a couple of shows ago about guys that could be in maybe in a position much in the way Deshaun Elliott was this past season. Now, the hope obviously is that Calvin Anderson doesn't have to play a lot of snaps in 2025 for the Steelers, but should something happen and he wind up playing a lot of snaps and he winds up playing well, might this be kind of a guy that's in a situation of Elliott next offseason where maybe we need to extend him. Maybe there's more to this than we originally thought. So I think that's where we're at on Calvin Anderson. Can anybody beat him out? Will they sign, or at least the closer they get to the season, maybe try to beef up the backup spot behind Broderick Jones and Troy Fautano? I mean, we'll have to see. Can a guy like Dylan Cook or someone else on the roster wind up winning that spot? We'll see. But the long and short of Calvin Anderson is, as we sit here in the latter part of June, is it looks like he's slated to be or at least given every opportunity to win the swing tackle spot.
That's where he's positioned right now. My question was going to be very similar to what you had mentioned at the end there. Could there be anyone internally to push him? We know this team could add an outside name. That's happened before at cutdowns. Maybe a UFL guy. I don't think any of the UFL offensive linemen have signed, to my knowledge. Some of the other skill guys have caught some contracts, somewhere some running backs, some tight ends, but a Dylan Cook, a Gareth Warren. Where does Aiden Williams, the undrafted rookie free agent from Minnesota Duluth, play? Is he playing tackle? Is he playing guard? I think he was a tackle in college. He might kick inside. What about Doug Nestor? Is there any name there that could push Anderson for that number 3 spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on at least a couple of the guys that you got a guy. I don't know. You would tend to think they would go with 6'5" or taller guys, and I think the official media site has Doug Nestor at 6'6", but he is more of a guard, is he not?
Played both at college, I think, but more. I think he was with Minnesota, I believe, before Pittsburgh signed him. I think he was playing guard last preseason.
Right. I think the two that really jump out, and this is a guy we've talked about the last couple of preseasons. I think Dylan Cook, but Cook had, what was it, the foot injury or something last year, and I would think Dylan Cook or Gareth Warren are two guys to potentially watch as the roster sits now, as far as potential guys that could push maybe for that swing tackle spot.
Dylan Cook's a guy that I was really high on a couple seasons ago, 2 years ago to be specific, and then, as you said, got hurt last year, was activated, brought back to the 53-man roster for about a day, and then finished the year on the practice squad. So this is really make or break for him. Can he be the guy that flashed 2 summers ago, that made the 53, that stuck all year? Because Pittsburgh was concerned if they tried to stash him on the practice squad, he would get claimed off of waivers. One of those few instances in which you would be worried about a player getting claimed that gets talked about so much starting next month, but most players go through waivers fine, but linemen in particular get a lot of interest, and guys like Cook would have drawn interest back then. But, you can't rest on whatever laurels you had of that success 2 years ago. He's got to be able to come back. I didn't think he had a great camp last year. It was just okay. I didn't see big progression. He gets hurt. So it's a guy that I thought had some promise, but this is really put up or shut up year for Dylan Cook.
Yeah, it is. Really is.
So we'll see on Anderson right now. He is the number 3 offensive tackle. That does concern me, and I think offensive line in general concerns me about this team, and that also leads us into our next name, the other Anderson on this team, Spencer Anderson, coming out of Maryland, former 7th-round pick, had gotten the initial look at left guard last year when Isaac Malu hurt his pec and missed the first month. But by the end of that time, the team had started to work in Mason McCormick, and Anderson finished the year as the backup, especially whenever, say, Malu returned healthy. And then even when James Daniels went down in that Colts game, McCormick was flipped over to right guard and finished out the year there. So Anderson, his calling card is versatility. He can play, inside, play tackle, he can play guard, play center. But Pittsburgh last year really focusing him on guard. Can he just become a solid backup? That'll be his mission.
Yeah, it sounds like we went into last season talking a lot about that position flexibility and even maybe some center capabilities to him. And was he more tackle? Was he more guard? I think the way the Steelers used him last year, mostly obviously as a guard, gives you the idea of what they think of him more than anything. Now, can he play right tackle in a pinch for you? Yes. Could he even in an emergency situation at this point probably get you out of the game at center? Yes. But primarily his spot as he enters training camp, you would assume would be as a backup swing guard for this team here. So that's where we're at with him. He logged 300 and almost 311 offensive snaps, 78 more on special teams, started 4 regular season games in 2024. While I viewed his play as as okay. Overall, I think he allowed 1 sack according to PFF and 11 total pressures. He did log 11 offensive snaps at right tackle last year. This is a guy that I view as heading into training camp, much like the other Anderson that we talked about, Calvin Anderson, as probably the initial swing guard on this roster. But I don't think I'd bet my house per se. I just would say that he's in a driver's seat to be the swing guard as we sit here in late June.
I wonder if he'll return to moving around and playing more than just guard, because last year Pittsburgh had really strong depth, especially in training camp at the start of camp when they had a healthy Nate Herbig and healthy Say Malu. I mean, you were pretty strong along the offensive line for your first and second team, so there was less of a need to get a guy like Anderson to move around and wear a lot of hats. With depth a lot thinner this year, could you see him get more work back at tackle or maybe some center reps, or obviously he'll get work at guard. So I wonder if that versatility will be leaned on a bit more, because it generally is whenever your lines are thinner.
Yeah, we'll have to see, but I just think that they view guard as his primary spot overall. Now, might you see him in some rotations if the lines get thin at per se right tackle? I think that's plausible. If you get into one of these 3 preseason games, could you see him get some snaps at right tackle? I think that's plausible as well too. But I think first and foremost, they would like to see him, get better at both those guard spots.
I agree. He's primary guard when I assume camp opens up, and we're reporting on the first and second team lines. Anderson will be second team. Obviously, he'll be at one of the guard spots, probably left guard, but we'll see. So, I mean, that's my expectation of where he'll primarily play and begin to play. But I wonder if he gets bounced around a little bit more this year, like he did in his rookie season, whenever he was bounced around quite a bit, playing inside and outside. But to the play itself, as you said, it's just pretty uneventful. Like, what does Spencer Anderson do well? What is his skill set? What are his strengths as an offensive lineman, Dave?
If memory serves me, he did a pretty good job on some pulling aspects.
Trying to think if he was a great puller. I don't know if that comes to mind to me. And how much will Pittsburgh run gap schemes this year, if they're going to rely and lean on more of the outside zone stuff that Arthur Smith feels like he can get back to. It just, everything feels like a C grade on his run blocking, his pass protection. It's not terrible, but it's not going to give you a great push in the run game. Pass pro's a little shaky. It's all maybe passable, but it's nothing exciting. And if you have to start that guy long term, you're in trouble. And that's why they went away from Anderson, whenever, say, Malu went down last year.
Yep, I agree.
All right, next on your list here, Dave, is Calvin Austin III, coming off that impressive 2024 season as a receiver and as a punt returner, looking for a bigger role in 2025, especially now that George Pickens is gone, and so far, no other offensive weapon has been brought in.
Yeah, I mean, as we sit here right now, and based on the progression that he made, I mean, I thought he put together a really favorable season for him. Took some steps forward in certain areas, and even so, he still only registered 36 receptions for 548 yards, 4 touchdowns on 58 targets. I think one of the most notable things, and one of the things that we had highlighted about Calvin Austin III coming out of Memphis the year he was drafted, was the explosive play rate on times that he touched the football. And last season, 10 of those 36 receptions were resulted in explosive plays of 20 yards or longer, and I think all 4 of the touchdowns were explosive plays as well too. So chipped in another reception for 25 yards in the lone playoff game last season. Was the primary top punt returner on his way to registering 289 yards and a touchdown on 28 total returns. And I think we noted just recently that ranked him, what was it, top 5, I think, in qualifying punt returners there as far as average per punt return went, and logged, almost 600 regular season offensive snaps, 68 more coming on special teams. Let's see, 33 more offensive snaps and 3 more on special teams in the playoff game. Was used inside and outside, 357 snaps in the slot, 270 others coming from a wide alignment. And based on the depth chart of where we sit right this moment, you'd have to view him as kind of the I guess the 2A, if you'll be interested to see if they add anybody else, what the plan with Robert Woods is, and just if there's anybody added to this roster that could really press him for it. But I think as we sit right now, this is a guy that you're going to see most of the time, along with DK Metcalf on the field, when there are situations that require at least 2 wide receivers being on the field.
You had Zach Azzani in the spring definitively call Austin the number 2 receiver. Now that's the positional coach, and that's subject to change. And I think that was a little more in rhetoric and deference to a more established player than, say, a Roman Wilson, who I think will be Austin's primary competition. As of now, I think Woods could have a role, but more of a rotational slot role on third down, not playing. Hopefully, Woods' role will be more like Van Jefferson, but less snaps than the 700 plus that Jefferson had last year that resulted in so many empty routes. But yeah, Austin's a guy we talked about a week or 2 ago. I thought he progressed. I thought he showed more than he had. Obviously, he had the big playability, which was important, and the speeding is his calling card, but his catch radius improved. He made some tough plays outside his frame, which was a big issue his first 2 years in the NFL. I know he didn't play his rookie year, but in training camp before he got hurt, there were some issues there too. His route running was impressive. The stems at the top of his route, ability to create space, those are all attractive. But can he become a more dominant outside threat? Will he get time there? We'll see. I think he's a guy that's made most of his plays out of the slot. And so can he actually step up and beat press coverage and be a better vertical threat out wide? There were some missed opportunities there last year. There was one abysmal drop. I forget who that came against. It was early in the season that cost him and the offense a big-time play, maybe against Atlanta in the opener. But that's what I'm looking for from Calvin Austin. Can you be more of a dominant outside threat?
This guy's had to play with a lot of quarterbacks too, hadn't he? So far.
That's true. That's true for sure.
When you look at guys that have been on this roster for a few seasons now at the wide receiver position that have had to play with a lot of different quarterbacks, I mean, it's him at this point, right? And he has seen quite a few of them, and he'll have another new one obviously this year in Aaron Rodgers that he'll have to get on the same page with quickly the rest of this summer here. I think when you look ahead at first and foremost, one of the things that we've talked about with Calvin Austin is, will they or won't they extend him this offseason? And my money would be on that not happening, but I'm not. My arm could be twisted into plausibility where it could happen. And as we talked about, if it did happen, I would visualize it being maybe a contract similar to that of what Deshaun Elliott just signed. But I think that's one thing to potentially watch the closer we get into training camp. And then after the start of training camp, will that happen? So I guess that's one thing to look for there. When it comes to actual production in 2025, I acknowledge that he made steps as a player, or all around player last year. I acknowledge that he sits right now as potential number 2 on this roster. All that said, I do think it sets up for him having a career year in 2025. But even so, I have a hard time truly visualize him topping, let's say, the 55 reception mark in 2025. I think it would be absolutely great if he was at least to hit that, and I think it would be something probably happened negatively on this roster if he was to exceed or asked to exceed that. I think the biggest aspect I'm looking for and an area where Calvin Austin can help this team in 2025 is to continue that explosive play rate of his. And obviously, if he was to have 55 receptions in 2025, if a quarter or a third of those were explosive plays, that would be absolutely fantastic for this offense. This is a guy that does well with the football in space, much like he did in college. I mean, he in certain aspects, at least statistically, he has been the player that he was in college at Memphis. But how much more can he help this team on a per game basis, and and maybe increase his per game reception total by, I don't know, 1, and can't would a good third to a quarter of those wind up explosive plays. So that's where I'm looking at him. Somewhere potentially around 50, 55 receptions, and once again, a quarter or a third of those being explosive plays. And as I mentioned, I think all 4 of his touchdowns last year were explosive plays. And, more than likely, this is going to be the team's punt returner again as well.
I think big picture, the question for Calvin Austin in role and production, is he going to be more of a receiver 3 type of guy, or can he become a receiver 2 in that, more defined starter with a higher volume, more consistent impact? That's going to be the dividing line. I think most, and I would as well view him as an ideal number 3 receiver in a strong passing game is kind of the way I look at Calvin Austin. But the next step would be become more of a receiver 2 type of guy. How do you think he'll work with Aaron Rodgers? I think our Jonathan Heitritter wrote a couple weeks ago, could he be Austin a Randall Cobb type of guy? And those guys maybe not 1-to-1 in their skill set. Austin a little more speed, I think, but a little undersized, can get open, trusted. How do you think that relationship will work?
Yeah, I mean that's That's $1 million question, one of several that we have to answer, and it would be good for Aaron Rodgers to, as he stated, to get these guys out in Malibu and get to working together. I mean, it's hard to predict, we talk about even last year with Aaron Rodgers, and I realized his first season in New York was cut short 1 game, but he had a pretty good idea in his second season about what the wide receiver crew would look like, even though Devontae Adams did not join until the trade deadline and all like that. And I keep going back to that report and that article by Aaron Schatz, how it seemed like Aaron Rodgers and his receiving crew were not on the same page quite a bit. So you do kind of wonder about how quickly Aaron Rodgers, not only Calvin Austin, but the rest of the receiving crew can get on the same page together, and work out timing, and everybody knows where everybody's going to be on the field. So it's impossible. I don't know how that's going to go, but I am interested to see how it winds up going.
I'm optimistic. I think Aaron Rodgers will like Calvin Austin, somebody who gets open, somebody who is, attention to detail oriented, and somebody that works really hard. And I think Austin checks all those boxes. Does that mean that Austin will have amazing production? No, but I think Rodgers will like him and look his way quite a bit. Let me give you this comparison, Dave. When Randall Cobb was 26 back in 2016, he caught 60 passes for 610 yards and 4 touchdowns. Any chance Austin posts a similar stat line to that in his age 26 season in 2025?
Well, if he does, I say, man, fantastic. That exceeded my expectations by a little bit. But I mean, I can visualize his best being 55. And once again, I mean, he had 4 touchdowns, all explosive plays. So you expect if he caught 55, at least 4 of those probably going to the house for a touchdown there. So could he even better that, and 5 or 6 touchdowns in that aspect there. So uh, that would be the extreme high end for him, ceiling for him. I think if he was to reach that and DK Metcalf's healthy and you get into kind of production out of him, I think that's absolutely fantastic for Calvin Austin if he was to reach those kind of numbers.
I think it's plausible. The receptions will certainly be the toughest part, but he had 4 touchdowns last year, like Cobb did, as you said. He had 548 yards last year, which isn't far off from Cobb's 610. He had 38 receptions to Cobb's 60. That was the biggest difference. There was more of the big play, less volume from Austin, but in a more expanded role, another year older. The passing game throws a little bit more this year than Pittsburgh did last year. Austin playing more snaps. It's not the craziest thought. Now, I should note Cobb only played in 13 games that year. I guess he got hurt. So, I'm not extrapolating that out for Austin beyond, but a 66-10 4 line, I think the yards per catch would be a little bit higher for Austin because of the big play potential, but just an overall kind of first glance, Austin's, I think, is in spitting distance of that.
Yeah, look, would I bet my house against that? Like I said, I have him kind of topped out at 55, but 5 more than that. Is that plausible? Yes.
Yeah, a lot does still depend on Roman Wilson's development. If he does develop and plays well, those guys could truly be in a rotation, and that's going to obviously bring production down. Obviously, Pittsburgh does make a splash signing, or even a Gabe Davis, which may not be a splash signing, but a notable addition all the same. That's going to bring that production down. But as things stand today, I think that is within the realm of possibility on Calvin Austin. But the question is he more receiver 3 or wide receiver 2? That's going to be the dividing line. This year should provide the answer.
Look, if he hits that 50 reception mark, it's probably been a good season for Calvin Austin. And he's probably looking forward to free agency.
Right, should get paid probably about $8 to $10 million per year in 2026 if no extension is done before this year, which I still don't think will happen. I don't think we'll get an extension, but we'll see.
All right.
All right, let's go to your next name on the list, Dave. Keanu Benton, nose tackle. We'll talk about a big season for him. Talented player, staying at nose tackle. Can he get more production? 2 sacks within 2 years, Dave, is the big number that sticks out to me with Keanu Benton.
Yeah, I was expecting a little bit better jump from Benson in his second season. It wasn't an awful season, overall. I thought there was some progression. This is to me, I don't know what you think about this 30,000 view assessment. He seems better early in games than he does later in games.
I did that really nerdy deep dive study after the bye week, I think last year, on Benton's club over move and the diminishing returns on it, that you saw him really win with that early kind of shock offensive lineman with that move. And then it petered out as linemen adjusted to it, and Benton didn't have that second move. And I do think overall, you look at just some of the tackles for loss that he had, the impacts that he had did tend to come earlier in games. Probably worth a good study to do on that during the dog days of summer here before training camp kicks up. But I agree. I tend to think he's a quick starter, and he's really got to find that second move. He's never found that second move in his game, Dave. And until he does that, he's always going to leave meat on the bone.
Yeah, he tends to pull that out early in games as well too, a couple of times, and then it seems like maybe the guy's it gets adjusted to, and you don't see as much success from that moving forward in games. If I would have told you when Keanu Benton was drafted, and look, we both were high on him. We both viewed him as a fit, and I think right out of the chute at the Senior Bowl, you had it was like the first guy that you had jumped on with the Squidward Steeler, kind of point to there.
We talked to him. We interviewed him at the Senior Bowl.
Right. If I would have told you though that after 2 seasons that Keanu Benton had 2 sacks, 2 career sacks, what would you have told me?
I would have said, he got hurt. Oh, that's unfortunate for Keanu Benton, because I wouldn't expect over him being healthy over 2 full seasons for that number to be so low. Now, there is obviously some value in pressure, and I know his pressure numbers, I think, have been decent. I forget what our charting had last year in his quarterback hits, and so I know there's always a big debate about sacks versus pressure, but sacks still get you paid, and sacks still really create that defensive splash, and Carl Dunbar, the defensive line coach, even admitted to that. So that's the big number to look for. Finishing some plays. There were opportunities out there for him that he did not make, or just were simply unable to make. And some of that's going to happen with quarterbacks getting the ball out quick. You can't control everything, but I think there's certainly a lot left on the table for Keanu Benton. And that one sack he had last year didn't come until week 18 against the Bengals. And so he was sackless until the regular season finale. And so, that's a guy that almost went an entire season as, supposedly an athletic sub-package rush tackle without a sack, and that's a problem.
I think this is a guy before last season started. I predicted that, I don't know, 5.5, 6 sacks. And obviously didn't come close to that. Does he have a potential to be 5.5, 6 sack guy? I think so. He's missed. I mean, heck, if he would have finished some of these potential plays in the first 2 seasons, I mean, he could probably have 10 more sacks right now, 10 or 11 more. And I think that's the big bugaboo. That's the thing that Dunbar talks about. Got to see him start finishing plays more. Like to see even some of these tackle for losses increase as well too. The long and short on him is he's got to finish more plays. He's got to be stronger against the run, and especially later in ball games.
Right. He had 17 pressures per hour charting last year. That was a pressure rate 1 every 20.3 snaps, and that number regressed about midway through the year. He was at 16. He finished at 20, so he's probably 24 throughout the latter half of the year, so did not rush as effectively late in the season. But again, it just goes back to the club over is an amazing move. I mean, if you rank the best rush moves of the Pittsburgh Steelers pass rushers, it's up there. It's Hayward's bull or his long arm. It's TJ Watt's swipe or rip, and it's Highsmith's inside spin. It's Benton's club over. It's a really, really effective move, but it is the only move he has right now, and it only goes to his right. He only does it to his right, the center's left, and you can't just have one move, be a literal one-trick pony and expect to have consistent success. These guys get tape on you, in their pregame film study, and then certainly in-game, they're going to adjust. And the study we did last year showed that. So can he show the bull? Can that club over work the other way? Can he do something else? He's tried some different stuff, and maybe there's been a little bit of success there, but there has to be a good second move. You don't need to have 6 different rush moves as a pass rusher. James Harrison had 2. He had his rip, he had his speed bull rush, and that's all you need is 2 good rushes. You had Freeney with the inside move or the inside spin and the outside speed rush. I mean, you only need 2. Benton right now only has 1. That's his big thing.
Right. Need to see him develop that bull and becoming ambidextrous, I guess, with that club over, and got to see him finish more. And look, this is we've talked about this several times. This is a big year for Keanu Benton, because if he comes into his own and becomes that 5.5 sack guy and increases the pressure and increases the tackles for loss, those kind of things, this is a guy that you're going to want to extend to assign to a contract extension next offseason. But this should be a very black and white type decision for the Steelers come this time next year. Either you're going to extend him and him be the guy for you up the middle for the next several years, or you're gonna be going back into the potentially back into the draft looking for another defensive lineman next year, probably earlier rather than later, with Benton playing out his rookie contract.
I wonder if he'll be an in-between guy, because I don't know if it's going to fully click for him. Maybe he gets 3-4 sacks and you're a little unsure. Do you extend him? Do you not? What's his value? What's his worth? I think the other guys might be a little cleaner to project. Broderick Jones, I think, will be truly black and white. Either the light came on and he succeeded and locked in at left tackle, or he didn't. Porter's going to be a little more black and white, obvious. Kind of, did he clean up some of his issues or not? I think Benton could be a little bit of that middle ground, but certainly, need to at least be asking and talking about that and having that conversation genuinely next year. And then just to not ignore it, you mentioned it a moment ago, the run defense is obviously still first and foremost. Can he stop the run? Can he anchor better? If you can't do that, as Carl Dunbar says, you have to earn the right to rush the passer. And so he's got to play good run defense on first and second down.
And as we've talked about, this team's got to be a lot better up the spine, and he's obviously a big part of that, or will be a big part of that.
Sticking with the defense here, cornerback Beanie Bishop Jr. in his second season, former undrafted free agent out of West Virginia, was thrust into the starting slot role last year, in part because Pittsburgh really had no other options before giving away to Cam Sutton off suspension in the second half of last season. Now Bishop appears to be the favorite as the team's starting slot corner wire to wire in 2025.
Look, if you had just his rookie season to go off of when it comes to Beanie Bishop, and several of us were surprised that he went undrafted as it was, and not only that, we were surprised that the Steelers were able to land him as an undrafted free agent last year. But based on his rookie season alone, this is a guy that should have been drafted. Even if it was seventh round, he showed enough that lived up to the expectations of what we thought, which was this was a draftable guy. 4 interceptions, two of them off of Aaron Rodgers. What a small world we live in there. Ended up logging nearly right at about 50% of the defensive snaps last year. Had 175 more on special teams. Most of his playing time on defense obviously came in the slot as the nickel personnel group guy, and right out right out of the right out of the chute, he's playing a lot of playing time. In fact, you dig deeper, I think in only 3 games did he fail to log at least 22 snaps on defense. So this guy was thrown right into the deep end of the pool, and fairly good to one of the things that stuck out to me going through his tape was this is a physical guy, and he even in the tackling department, I think PFF had him down for just 3 missed tackles in 2024. He did allow 40 receptions for 436 yards and 3 touchdowns on 59 regular season targets, but he did have the 4 takeaways. He had some passes defensed, and 7 of those, half a sack. Not a guy that's probably ever going to be one of those guys that come off the edge with the perfect timing, the way the Mike Hilton did type aspect. But it would be interesting to see if they're able to use him more in some blitzing situations, how he's able to handle those and the timing of those and make an impact that way there. But as we sit here right now and you look at the roster and the experience, you would have to pencil him in as at least the guy that you think is going to be the starting nickel once again. This team did go out and sign Brandon Eccles during the offseason, so that will be an interesting battle to watch once training camp gets underway. But you would hope that this is a guy that's able to build off of his rookie season and potentially become the guy, provide you confidence that he could be your nickel for the next couple of years.
I'd made the comment earlier this offseason that last year was about surviving for Beanie Bishop Jr., keeping his head above water. I thought he did that overall. Just, again, being in the position of rookie starting week 1, a lot on his plate, playing that nickel spot, a lot of communication, involved in the run fit, involved in coverage, just trying to juggle everything. I thought he handled that well enough, but this year's really about finding, okay, who really is Beanie Bishop now that he can catch his breath, have a full off season to get comfortable with the team and the scheme in the NFL. Because I don't know what his strength is. Is he great against the run? No, he's okay. He's willing, but it's not Mike Hilton good. Is he good in coverage? He made splash plays last year, but is he a great man coverage guy or, ace cornerback? I haven't seen that yet. I wouldn't go that far. So I'm just trying to figure out, okay, what is this guy's strength and how can he really consistently help this team win?
Yeah, got to be better in coverage, I think, overall. Just another year in this defense should help, once again, he was kind of thrown in and fire, if you will, and played a lot of snaps right out of chute for this team. And you got a lot of these same guys back on the defensive side of football, especially in the secondary. So I think that should help him. You got a guy in Slay that can help mentor him a little bit in that room as well too. Just expecting him to take another step forward and be better in coverage, be better against the run. We'll see how he does when asked to come off the edge in those type of instances and all. All that being said, though, I mean they brought in Brandon Eccles for a reason to challenge him, so he shouldn't. He certainly does not need to coast this summer.
I am a little concerned, though, because some of the spring reports I think we wrote about a little bit this weekend is that we're not hearing about anybody else really getting a lot of slot time. Eccles said, I think it told one beat reporter he played on the outside only, or one beat reporter observed he only played on the outside. Someone had told, I think it was Sebastian Castro had told a beat guy that he had not played any slot corner reps yet. That was another guy we thought might get involved. I assume Dante Kent, the 7th-round pick, is going to see some snaps there, but that's a 7th-round pick just trying to fight to make the team. So I'm going to be very curious at training camp who is getting slot work who is potentially competing with Beanie Bishop, or are they just going to hand this guy the job basically like they did last year?
Yeah, we'll see. But they better have a contingent plan, especially if an injury happens, and especially if you got a couple of new guys coming in there, expected to in case of injury, fill that role. You got to see those second and third team guys get chances, and I imagine we will.
Yeah, I mean, they probably have some sort of plan, and at least you have some returning guy in Beanie Bishop that makes you feel a little bit better about the slot position than it has in past years, including last season. But it just feels like Pittsburgh has never really had great answers at the slot since losing Mike Hilton, and I'm a little worried they really don't have a great plan this year besides just hoping Bishop takes that next step.
And that's what assuming he is the guy. I mean, we've got to visibly see that next step.
Yeah, and I'm okay with Bishop getting the lead role in training camp and being the guy initially atop the depth chart, but you need some veterans or need somebody to push this guy. Just in general, it's not. I think Bishop probably works hard, not like he needs to be pushed, but all young guys need competition. Pittsburgh did this on the offensive line when they were rebuilding that front five. They really weren't. There wasn't really any challengers to guys like Broderick Jones and even Dan Moore and Kendrick Green early in their careers. And some of those guys didn't need it, but some of those guys probably did, or at least to give the team some more options. And I think that hurt Pittsburgh overall. I'm kind of seeing the same at slot corner where the young guy just feels like it's his spot because there really is not a lot of competition.
And in today's NFL, this is an important spot because you play a lot of sub package. He's going to be on the field for a lot of snaps and probably a little bit, assuming he wins the spot and can hold it, he, probably going to exceed last year's snaps by a little bit.
Well, he did. He barely played at the end of last year once Sutton came back. He's only playing Bishop was in dime packages, and sometimes that wasn't used at all. The Kansas City game, for example. So he really didn't see much time late in the season. So, I think it's a chance for him to really start
700 snaps, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next one on the list, Dave, is a rookie, Yahya Black, the 5th-round pick, defensive lineman out of Iowa. Will have antennas on where he'll be playing on the defensive line. Carl Dunbar initially, after drafting him, said more defensive end than nose tackle, more four-tech. He's maybe not backtracked, but now talked about him playing more all over. They want Travis Adams' release, I think, open up that possibility a whole lot more. My stance is the more he plays nose tackle, the better he'll do and the better off for the Pittsburgh Steelers he'll be.
I agree. I think obviously his strength coming out of college at Iowa is his play against the run. I would expect him, even though we've heard about him playing up and down the line, I would expect them trying to focus on one thing with him and play towards his strengths. That would mean probably, a lot of nose tackle type stuff with him. The pass rush aspect of his game, I don't know that the ceiling is going to be too much higher than what it is right now. Does need to show some pass rush growth as he gets into the NFL at this point. Barring injury, I don't see him. I see him being, the occasional rotate in, true rundown type nose tackle. Obviously, probably a guy when you get in goal line situations that if you're going 4 across in there, probably going to be one of the 2 down linemen in there. I think he'd be hard pressed to hit, say, the 300 snap mark there. I think first and foremost is, can this guy during the remainder of the offseason here show the coaches enough or them gain enough confidence in him where he gets a helmet at least to start the season. So as a 5th-round draft pick, it's kind of on that line where you expect him to make the 53-man roster. So I am expecting that. Will this team keep 6 or 7 defensive linemen? And will he do enough with the Aquales and the Loudermilks and the other guys battling for spots? Assuming he does make the 53-man roster, do you have enough confidence in him for his type of role that he'll at least get a helmet to start the season?
Well, that's where I was going to start, and I know some people won't like hearing this, but the reality is he's got to make the team first, and to me that is not a guarantee. As a 5th-round pick in general, you're not guaranteed to make it. Are your odds better than 50%? Probably, historically, but there's depth along the defensive line in terms of competition, and let's assume they keep 7. They usually keep 6 or 7. They kept technically 8 to start last year, but that was Logan Lee going on IR before week 1, so 7 on the week 1 roster. So we'll even go high end and say 7. You have Hayward, Benton, Harmon as your top 3. behind, I think Aquale is going to make it. I think as that veteran run defender that's versatile as well, I do like his odds overall. So that's your fourth guy. There are open spots, but you have Loudermilk and Lee, and technically Dean Lowry's still there, and obviously Black himself, and so those spots could get spoken for, and so the play has to be good. He has to earn that spot. Is all I want to say. Can he make it? He certainly can make the roster. It would be a bit disappointing if he started the year on the practice squad, but the run defense has to be more consistent than it was at Iowa. He's got to stay on his feet. He's got to be better laterally. The pass rush, you would love to be something, but I'm not going to expect the pass rush to ever get there for Yahya Black. And if it does, that's a next year, third year kind of a thing. His run defense, his calling card, the reason why he got drafted has to be more consistent. If he's an inconsistent run defender and a non-existent pass rusher, that's when you sit there and say this guy may not make the 53 to initially start his career.
Yeah, look, 6'5", 330. He better play up to it. And we saw Logan Lee, and obviously we won't be talking about Logan Lee in this for a few more 90 and 30 segments, but Logan Lee was a bit surprisingly used a lot at nose tackle last year during the preseason. Dean Lowry, we hopefully Black does enough where it makes Dean Lowry. If Dean Lowry's on this roster because he's a better player than or gives the coaching staff more confidence in Yahya Black, then there's a concern there. So my money, and I'm sure you agree at this point in the offseason, your money would be on Yahya Black making the 53-man roster. But once again, probably wouldn't bet the entire house on that. You just hope that he does. And then once again, the big question is assuming he does, is he doing enough that he's going to get a helmet right out of the chute?
Would be worthwhile to study the number of day 3 picks, 4th, 5th rounders who did not make the initial 53-man roster. And that has happened occasionally in Pittsburgh. I'm trying to think back. Anthony Chikla, was he somebody who didn't make the initial 53? It looks like I'm Wikipedia, if that's to be trusted. September 6th, he had made the initial 53, but was waived before week 1 and then signed to the practice squad. So that's a guy that technically made it, but wasn't actually there week 1. I think Durant Grant was another guy that didn't do it. You think a little bit further back with Fred Gibson, Danny Farmer, a couple of the 4th-round receivers who failed to make the team. So just to say that history says there is no guarantee he makes it. It will have to be earned, and that's fine. That's how it should be. It should be earned. You should not be you're handed the job, the opportunity as a 5th-round guy. If you're doing that, then you're not giving these guys jobs for the right reasons. It should be the competition brings the best out in everyone. Cream rises to the top, and Black has a good summer and confidently makes his team to help Pittsburgh in some form or fashion this season.
All right.
All right, let's see. We have Chris Boswell next on the list. He needs no endorsement from me, as Mike Tomlin might say. Boswell off a historically good 2024 season, led the NFL in field goals, led the NFL in scoring. The first Pittsburgh Steeler to ever lead the entire league in scoring, came just shy from tying or breaking the all-time mark. 4 field goals made in the season. You would love him to make fewer field goals in 2025, obviously. That means more touchdowns, hopefully, on Pittsburgh's end. But Boswell, is he the best kicker in football?
I think pound for pound for everything that you ask a kicker to do, yes. I think he is right now, especially coming off of this 2024 season. 13 of 15 of field goals attempted from 50-plus yards out, and he kicks in one of the toughest stadiums on top of it. That was a single-season career high for him. Let's see. What was the other thing here? 41 field goals made, led the NFL in 2024. That was a career single season high for him as well, too. Made all 35 of his extra point tries. I mean, what more did you want Chris Boswell to do? Even his kickoffs in the new kickoff rule, I thought were okay. 90 of those. I'd like to see him have to kick off even a lot more. In 2025, had a 64-yard average. Only 49 of his kickoffs resulted in touchbacks. Obviously was a first-team All-Pro. Voted to the Pro Bowl for just a second time in his career. So yeah, I'm not going out on a limb to say that as long as he remains healthy throughout the summer, that he'll once again be the Steelers kicker. That's not hard to predict. I think the biggest thing when it comes to him. I want to see fewer field goal attempts out of Chris Boswell, more extra points. There's no reason to think he won't be dependable more times than not when asked to attempt field goals more than 45 yards out. And really, the biggest question with Chris Boswell has been the money. To me, do the Steelers, in my opinion, need to reward him right now. And he's got 2 years left on his contract, so I don't think you'll see a true extension. But I am expecting them to up his cash total in at some point this offseason so that he can say, I am the highest paid cash earning kicker for the 2025 season. So I think that's the biggest question from here on out until the start of the regular season. And once again, once you get into the regular season, be nice not to ask him to go out there and bury too many of those 50-plus yarders. Would like to see him have to kick a lot more extra points, and I'm sure the Steelers would like that as well.
That All-Pro selection, by the way, first Steelers kicker to ever make first-team All-Pro in their single season, in a single season, I should say. So Boswell, really, historically, the best season by Steelers kicker in history by far for all the reasons you mentioned. The debate will be about, in the way that it's TJ Watt and Myles Garrett to a lesser degree, but Chris Boswell versus Dallas's Brandon Aubrey are kind of the two kickers. Who's the best? That's the big debate there. They're both very, very talented. Both have great distance from 50 plus. Boswell was 13 of 15. Aubrey was 14 of 17. So both guys great in their own right, but that'll be the debate. And as you said, the contract situation. Now, they won't extend him because he's 2 years out, and that'd be breaking a precedent Pittsburgh is unlikely to break for anybody, especially even a kicker like Chris Boswell.
Yeah, just move some of his money forward from 2026, and if you have to add in a little more cash on top of it, do it. But even right now, the base salary, 3 whatever million it is not even guaranteed. So I will be shocked if they don't do something there with Chris Boswell and his money.
And there is precedent for that, albeit limited. Antonio Brown got a cash advance, you could say. What year was that? 2017? Something like that, I think.
I don't remember the exact year, but it did happen with him, and it's time for it to happen with Chris Boswell for sure.
Can I ask you what's going to sound like a stupid question, which is probably par for the course for me asking to you sometimes, but let me ask you this question, Dave. Is Chris Boswell too good for the Pittsburgh Steelers? And I say that in the sense of, does this team get comfortable with, let's not worry about trying to make the big play here. We're in field goal range. Let's let Boswell put 3 points on the board for us. I think back to the Falcons game. I remember that first, I think it was the opening drive or the first points of the season where there was 3rd and 6. I think Pittsburgh ran the ball. Then afterwards, Arthur Smith talked about, well, we have a really good kicker. We trust in Chris Boswell to make it from 50 plus. Like, is that almost in the sense too much of a comfort? The Linus blanket Pittsburgh clings onto and says, let's not try to get too fancy here. Let's just take the 3 and get the points.
In other words, does it play into the living into your fears category? Yeah, I suppose so.
Exactly. Nothing against Boswell. He's doing his job fantastically, but you do wonder, does this kind of, make Pittsburgh, if they had a worse kicker, would they be a little more aggressive in some situations because they weren't as confident in just trotting their kicker out and putting 3 on the board?
Yeah, it's plausible that some decisions and play calls are made with that in mind.
I think I'm looking at the Falcons box score last year. 3rd and 6 from the Falcons, 41. Cordero Patterson, carry for 2 yards. Boswell, 57-yard field goal. If you didn't have a kicker you trusted that much, you're probably passing that situation. You're trying to get the first down. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. You don't know. But, there's a chance to get more instead of settling for 3 is kind of my thought on Chris Boswell.
How about just put less on him, like I said, and just score more touchdowns? I would like to have a season where you're not relying on him so much from 45 yards out, and you're talking more about extra points.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And that's the goal. I'm sure, if you ask Arthur Smith, do we want to kick less? He'll say, heck yes, we want to kick more extra points and fewer field goals. But I do wonder if this I don't want to say self-fulfilling prophecy, but just this idea of, well, we don't have to take the chance here because we do trust our kicker to get 3. So let's not do too much offensively that might screw that possibility up.
I want him to be the highest paid kicker in the NFL with the least amount of field goal attempts.
Right, for sure. All right, Dave, let's go to Nick Broeker, offensive lineman, signed just a couple weeks ago as offensive line depth out of Ole Miss, formerly the Houston Texans, can play some inside, outside. He might get some tackle work this year. He played right tackle in the preseason last year, so we talked about guys that theoretically could compete for either that fourth offensive tackle spot or maybe challenge a Calvin Anderson. Broeker should be on that list as well.
Yeah, probably a step down, or not probably, is a step down from a Calvin Anderson. I mean, not Calvin Anderson. Spencer Anderson, I think, a guy that can play both guard spots, probably get you out of a game at right tackle. God forbid you get in a situation, has played a little bit of left tackle during his college career as well, too. I think the Steelers obviously see him as a guard going into training camp here. To me, he's got his work cut out for him this summer when it comes to actually making the 53-man roster. I think a lot would have to go wrong, per se. I figures they'll probably open up camp as a second or third team guard option. It'll be interesting to see some of those initial line combinations that you put out once they get into training camp here. I think best case scenario as we're sitting here right now when it comes to Nick Broeker is he does enough during the summer and preseason that you gained a little bit of confidence that at least that you're clamoring to try to get him to the practice squad once the final cut downs happen.
My notes on Broeker coming out of college, we had the report on him was a nasty physical run blocker. So I do want to see that. I want to see strained and finish and a guy who throws his weight around or at least plays hard. If he does that, that's going to endear himself well to this coaching staff. Dave, let's play. I'm going to sell these things super well today. Let's play the most boring game we can play. What will that second team training camp offensive line look like? Who do we think will make it up? We know first team. We already know the front five. It's good. Everyone knows their role. We don't have to go over that. Who's going to be that second team front five? I'm tweeting out that first day of camp in 1 month and 1 day from now.
I would probably think Spencer Anderson at left tackle.
Spencer Anderson at left tackle or Calvin Anderson?
Calvin Anderson at left tackle.
Spencer at left guard?
Well, probably Spencer Anderson at left guard. Obviously, your center would probably be Ryan McCollum.
Mm-hmm.
Your right guard.
That gets tricky.
Yeah, Max Sharping, maybe.
Yeah. I think somebody made a mention during OTAs, the first and second team guys were all players who were on the team in some capacity last year. They didn't say exactly who that was, but that would track with Sharping then. That's good. That's good call.
And then
Dylan Cook at right tackle.
Probably Dylan Cook would be the best bet there.
Can I get you to go third team? Am I asking too much?
Oh, that's where it gets
will look
tough.
Like. I mean, it's just the remaining players. Really, it's just about kind of fitting in where they go. I think Broeker might play some tackle. I think he could be at right tackle. And then where does who's left? Aiden Williams, Doug Nestor. It's probably not worth going through the third team right now, but it's remaining guys.
You have to think Nestor would be one of the guards, right?
I would think so.
Who would be your third team center?
I got to look at the list. It's a good question. Not 100% sure on that right now. I got Warren and Broeker. I'll say a tackle. I got Nestor at one of the guard spots. Aiden Williams, and who are we missing on the offensive line right now that can also play maybe some center? Are they 15 offensive linemen?
Didn't Stephen Jones have some center experience?
Yeah, Stephen Jones was there. I don't think he played center. He played tackle and guard at Oregon. I don't know what he did last year in the preseason.
I could have sworn I saw something on Stephen Jones.
Maybe he did. He's a tall guy. He's like 6'6". He's pretty upright, stiff body. I don't know if he's a great center. But there was Stephen Jones, who I liked coming out of Oregon. Pat Meyer went to the Oregon Pro Day for probably primarily Jackson Powers Johnson. But I think Jones impressed because Jones came in for a visit. He's I think a pretty mauling run blocker who can pull. But I don't think he's playing center. Could Nestor play center? I mean, you got Aiden Williams, you got Stephen Jones, you got Nestor. I'm going to put Warren in at left tackle. I'm going to assume he's going to be left tackle for Pittsburgh.
I'm looking back to see if Stephen Jones logged any. No, I'm not seeing any.
I don't think he played center.
There was one of them I thought that had logged some center snaps, but it's not.
Could Aiden Williams do it? He's taller, but he's going to probably be an interior guy. He's got sub 33-inch arms. Yeah, that third team center will be interesting.
Let me see what Aiden Williams did.
I mean, he was a guard, I think, at the East-West Shrine game. He played tackle primarily at Minnesota Duluth. I don't know if Nestor would be there. They're all kind of taller linemen, though. I mean, could Broeker do it? I don't know.
Maybe Nestor. I don't think Broeker has much of any.
Played some interior.
Maybe you run maybe you move Spencer Anderson in there after his second team reps.
That's true. That's true. So anyway, that's kind of the projection, and we'll certainly have updates once camp begins.
Long story short, though, with Broeker is I think best case scenario is he gives you enough that you get him to the practice squad.
Yeah. I told you it'd be the most boring game, and I delivered on that. So thank you guys for listening through our musing. All right, let's finish up the 90 and 30 list to date with rookie Carson Bruener, 7th round pick, the son of Mark Bruner, battling for a spot, and that'll likely come on special teams.
Yeah, look, for a 7th round selection, you could probably do worse with him. It was an easy dot connect. I remember talking to him right out at shoot at I think ahead of the Shrine game or whatnot with Josh. And anyway, I mean, not surprising he became a Steeler. When you look overall at a potential spot on the roster with him, the special teams value alone with how he could potentially be a 4-phase core special team guy, get you excited. That alone with him. Obviously played a lot of snaps in college, and you could do worse, I think, as a 4th or 5th inside linebacker option for this team in 2025. Could wind up easily being an upgrade over the 2024 versions of Tyler Matakevich and Mark Robinson is both a defensive player and special teams player. Even though 7th rounders should not be considered lots to make the 53-man roster, I don't think anybody would be surprised if we're sitting here, 11, 12 Sundays from now where he is on the 53-man roster. And not only that, active on game day as a core special teams player. So I think he's going to get a lot of burn, obviously, at inside linebacker throughout the summer in, probably a 3rd team type of role. I think Danny Smith will work him out a lot to see if he could be a core special teams player. And quite honestly, if I had to predict right now, he will be on the 53-man roster. He will be active on game day as a core special teams guy in either the 4th or the 5th inside linebacker option.
His odds certainly feel better than the typical 7th round pick, even in a crowded inside linebacker room. You like the special teams background. It's what he did at Washington. I think through his entire career, but certainly before 2024 when he was a primary special teams, multi-phase kind of a guy. I think he still held that role to some degree. Actually, maybe Washington took him off that in his last season. I'd have to go back and check the numbers on that. But certainly experience there, not going to be anything new or foreign to him, which gives you a leg up because a lot of these guys that come from college, Dave, they were starters. They didn't play on special teams. They were the guy, and Bruner's the guy that had to really work his way up. And so he's a thumper. I don't want to, overestimate his chances. Still has to earn it. Still facing Mark Robinson, an established special teams kind of a guy that had success last year, forced a couple of fumbles on the return team, the coverage team, I should say. But I do like Bruner's chances.
Look, you don't have many guys coming out of college that had over 305 or over 300 total tackles, right?
Yeah, and he did that not only being a full-time defensive guy that last year when he had over 100 tackles for Washington. How many tackles did he have last year for the Huskies? It was over 100, I know. I don't have the exact number in front of me.
Yeah, he was only one of 2 Big Ten players with 100-plus tackles and 3+ interceptions.
Yeah, so he was a tackle machine. I think his block deconstruction was good. He cut off blocks well. He tested well at the combine or the pro day. I forget whatever his workout was. He ran 4.58, so he had some good athletic testing. May not exactly translate on the field, but a good player, good value, 7th rounder, and 104 tackles last year for Carson Bruener.
All right, so certainly a guy to look forward to going into the summer and obviously the preseason. And once again, as a 7th rounder, you could do worse, and I'm expecting him to make the 53-man roster.
Let me ask you something, Dave. We wrapped up your 90 and 30. You'll have another edition coming up today and every day until training camp kicks off. Did you listen to the standard that ran over the weekend, which is the Steelers' ongoing docu-series that followed the NFL draft? Did you listen to that by chance?
No, I did not get to that yet. I will today.
All right, we'll talk about it more for Wednesday then. Obviously, it was a run-through of all the rookies from Derek Carman down to Dante Kent, and you heard from the players themselves. You heard from Terrell Austin, Arthur Smith, Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan. Omar Khan was talking. I just want to get your take on Khan's comments, and this is now, he's kind of more established as a GM. He has more of a resume. There's a little more to evaluate just watching his rookie classes going back to 2023 and how those guys all pan out. But I just want to get your thoughts on Khan's commentary. Whenever he speaks, you hear him, he says all the right things. He doesn't say anything wrong, but it's a lot of like, he's a Steeler, he's a football player. There isn't a whole lot of detail behind that. Is that him just trying to be a little more secretive and not give away too much information. I just want to kind of get your thoughts on Omar Khan, the way that he speaks and presents, and what do you think about that?
What's the question?
Well, you're gonna have to watch this. Go watch that episode first because I want to kind of get your thoughts on whenever he ran through the draft picks. But it's not. He's pretty light on the football commentary. It's a lot of like he's a Steeler, he's our kind of a guy, but you're not hearing a lot of depth from him. Is that intentional? Because the concern with Omar Khan, I'm not making this a critique. I'm just making this more of an observation. But the critique on Khan was like he's not a football guy. He's been a numbers cruncher. He's been the cap guy. Can he truly evaluate? And it would be nice to hear him kind of get into the football nitty gritty a little bit more. I don't expect him to like break it down the way that maybe Mike Tomlin does, but it's pretty light on the substance of the player.
Okay, I got you. All right,
I
I'll
just want to
watch
get your
that.
thoughts.
Yeah.
But I mean, I also know he's very careful with the media, and he does a
Mhm.
good job of not saying too much. And I think especially early in his tenure as Steelers GM, he really didn't want to say anything and maybe give away leverage or create a story. Wanted to like make it very, very not secretive, but just be very protective of his information. And Kevin Colbert did that to a degree, but Colbert was the boots on the ground, old school Blesto scout, worked his way up the more traditional path to GM, and he's the guy that gave you some information about the guy whenever he was drafted. I haven't heard that from Khan. Not saying he doesn't have that information. I just want to get your take on, his comments, I guess, in talking about this rookie class.
All right, I'll watch over that. We'll maybe talk a little bit about that on Wednesday then.
All right, Dave, I wrote an article today, and it's talking about are the Pittsburgh Steelers in football purgatory? And we hear that a lot about this team. They feel stuck. Are they going forward? Are they going backward? How do they get out of it? But how do you define football purgatory? And is Pittsburgh really in it? And so it's going to be hard for me to describe this in audio form. Go read the article. Online, and I kind of, will flesh out the whole study. But I looked at, win streaks of 9 or 10 games since the NFL went to a 16-game season in 1978. And Pittsburgh currently is tied for the longest streak of winning 9 or 10 games in consecutive seasons. They've done that 4 straight years now. If they do it again in 2025, it'll be a record. And if you look at teams that have won 9 or 10 games without a playoff win over that span, Pittsburgh leads the NFL with 4 straight seasons of that. So it really, truly does feel like Pittsburgh is in purgatory of they can win 9, 10 games, they can be in the mix, but they don't go anywhere from there.
Just good enough to get you excited to not deliver come playoff time, right?
Exactly. And so I think it is very fair to say that Pittsburgh is truly in purgatory. And how do you get out? This is the question. Can Aaron Rodgers get you over the top? Can this offensive line coalesce and develop and get you over the top? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. We'll get to some emails and close out the show here. Let's see. We'll start with Still Pastor and Not Much Here. Just wanted to make us aware that Arthur Smith's dad, Fred Smith, passed away. So yeah, Joe, we talked about that, Pastor Green, at the top of the show there, but appreciate the reminder nonetheless. Another one here from Brad Prentice writes in, have they announced who will be replacing Craig Wolfley in the radio booth? He says, if not, he says, may I suggest we campaign for one Dave Bryan to be the new color commentator for the Steelers broadcast. I'd be willing to pay for the radio version of the Sunday ticket to hear that. If that doesn't fly, have you two ever considered live streaming your instant reaction watching the retake? That would be a lot more entertaining and informative than Ben's live stream, he says. Love the podcast and your analysis. Plus, it impresses everybody at the bar when I start rebutting their cap arguments with Dave's cash spending nuggets. At least I think I impressed them. Their eyes glaze over and they go slack jawed. So at least Brad's getting something out of the cash spending and cap talking that we do on this show. I don't think you have to worry about me being a color commentator for the Steelers. I would imagine when it comes to the passing of Craig Wolfley, they'd lean a little bit more on Max Starks, right?
Yeah, they've not made any official announcements, I don't think. I know Starks has had a bigger role in recent years. I hadn't looked up exactly what everyone's role was, but to my knowledge, there has been no official replacement. But, Pittsburgh usually announces these things later. Rob King wasn't announced as the play-by-play guy until, I think, very late in the process, very late in the summer last year. So we'll see if something comes out next month before camp.
All right. Let's see. No, we haven't really given much consideration to live streaming instant reactions. One thing that Alex does do right after the game, after we get through that initial push of news and press conferences that comes out right after the games, Alex usually records, I don't know, 4.5, 5, 6 minutes sometimes of a quick initial thoughts of the game that goes up both on the site and YouTube. So that's probably the closest that we're going to come to immediate reaction in audio or visual form.
I mean, I've thought about it. In some ways, I would like to do it, but logistically, it would just be so tough with so much happening behind the scenes with the site during the game, and especially the second the game ends, we are in full go mode on Tomlin, on players, on wrap up, on articles that we write. They go up right after the game, on winners and losers, the game recap we do, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I get the value. I think it'd be a lot of fun, but I think logistically, just we're not in a position to do that right now.
Yeah, at least not right now. Never say never down the line as things go with this thing. We'll see. But no immediate plans to do anything like that other than what Alex does currently.
All right, anything else in the emo machine, Dave?
No, I think we've got him here on this slow Monday here. So you and I will be back. Still no word on the Deshaun Elliott contract. Hopefully, we'll have more particulars on that as this week rolls on. The Steelers have not even officially announced that yet, so we'll wait and see what happens between now and Wednesday. We'll see if there's any other roster moves. You would think another week or two, they would have their 90-91 set at that point and all. But we'll get into, I imagine, on Wednesday, talking more 90 and 30, unless there's any other newsy type aspect of this team to discuss. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, hit SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. So until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.